Ever feel like you're drowning in information, just bombarded with stuff all the time? We all do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much out there. It's overwhelming sometimes.
Really. So that's kind of the whole point of this, right? To really dig into something that seems worthwhile.
Exactly. And today we're tackling this British crime series that everyone's been buzzing about.
Mm,
It's on Netflix, translated as Adolescence.
adolescence.
Uh,
Okay. And we've got this really intriguing review to guide us. It's from Anuye, which translates to Black Bottle Film Review.
right, Black Bottle Film Review.
Mm.
And it was posted on Usucies, so Fisherman's Black Bottle Film Review. Just came out on March 27th, 2025.
Okay, so very recent. And they didn't hold back at all, huh?
Not even a little. The reviewer straight up said they felt CS after watching.
Hmm.
That translates to really heavy, like
Yeah.
deeply affected by it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's not like a lighthearted watch then. Definitely not your typical Netflix binge.
Yeah, no, they even compared it to Hushu, which is Electric Fantasy Country, and said that one's way more superficial. So you know going in, this is going to stick with you.
Yeah, no kidding. Sounds intense. So what is it about adolescence that has everyone, including this reviewer, so hooked?
Well, the reviewer really emphasizes that everyone should watch it, no matter who you are. Man, woman, young, old, parent or not. They're like, everyone needs to see this and talk about it.
Huh. Interesting. So what's the big deal with this show? What makes it so thought-provoking?
The review starts with this really gripping hook. He's only 13, Goody. And bam, you're right in the thick of it.
Okay, he's only 13, Cootie.
Yeah,
So we're dealing with a young teenager here, potentially involved in something serious.
exactly. And it's not a short film or anything. It's a full-fledged 4-episode series, but each episode is under an hour. So you get this feeling of a longer movie, that immersive experience.
I see. And this reviewer highlighted something about the filming style too, right?
Oh, yeah. They were really impressed with the one-shot technique. So basically, the camera never cuts. It just follows the action in real time through the eyes of the police, the psychologists, everyone involved.
Oh, wow. So you're like right there with them, experiencing everything as it unfolds. No escape.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that really adds to the tension and the emotional impact. You're forced to confront everything head on.
So to be clear, what's the actual premise of the show? What's this 13-year-old potentially involved in?
Well, the central question is whether this 13-year-old boy actually committed murder.
Murder. Wow. Okay. That's heavy stuff.
Yeah, and it's not just about figuring out who did it. The real focus is on understanding the why. What could drive a child to such a horrific act?
Yeah, that's the real question, isn't it? The why is always more complicated than the who.
Definitely. And here's something else that adds another layer. Stephen Graham, the actor, he not only created and wrote Adolescence, but he also plays Jamie's father.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. So he's really invested in this story.
You bet. And that probably brings a whole other level of authenticity and emotional depth to the performance, which for you as the viewer means a more powerful experience.
Makes sense. Now, I know you mentioned spoilers earlier. Is that where we're heading now?
Yeah, to really understand the impact of this series, we've got to dig into some of the details. So if anyone wants to go in completely blind, maybe pause and come back later.
Fair enough. All right, so spoiler alert, everyone. Let's dive in.
Okay, so the review poses this really unsettling question. Is a good kid really good?
Is a good kid really good? Oh, man, that sends chills down your spine.
Right, and the reviewer talks about how dark and oppressive the whole atmosphere is right from the start.
Okay, so it's not one of those shows that eases you in gently. It throws you right into the deep end.
Yeah, exactly. And apparently the first episode is intentionally slow-paced. It wants you to sit with the shock and disbelief that Jamie's family is going through.
So you're really feeling their pain, their confusion. You're right there with them, trying to process this unthinkable event.
Precisely. And that slow pace, that deliberate buildup, it actually serves a clever narrative purpose.
It does. How so?
Well, the reviewer points out that it initially leads you, the viewer, to doubt Jamie's guilt. You start thinking, no, it can't be him. He's just a kid. You're almost in denial, just like his father probably is.
Oh, I see. So it plays with your expectations. It makes you question everything.
Yeah, and then as the story progresses, you start to see how everything unravels. And it's not some simple explanation like mistaken identity or an outside threat.
It's more complicated than that.
Way more. The series really dives into how a whole bunch of factors come together to push this good kid, who's clearly intelligent, to commit such a brutal murder.
Wow. Okay. What kind of factors are we talking about here?
Well, for one, there's the family dynamic. The reviewer hints at these unspoken expectations and pressures that Jamie was probably facing at home.
So maybe a lot of pressure to succeed, to be perfect, that kind of thing.
Possibly. And then there's the bullying he was going through at school, that constant torment from his peers.
Yeah, bullying can be absolutely brutal. It can really mess with your head.
And on top of all that, the reviewer specifically mentions the influence of online content. And not just any content, they call it out as misogynistic.
Misogynistic. So basically, content that promotes hatred or prejudice against women.
Exactly. And for you, the listener, that's a huge red flag. It suggests that the series isn't shying away from showing how these deeply harmful anti-female viewpoints can actually warp a young person's worldview.
Yeah, that's scary to think about. How easily impressionable young minds can be influenced by that kind of toxic stuff.
Absolutely. And the reviewer highlights this really heartbreaking line from Jamie's parents at the end. Perhaps we all could have done more.
Oh, wow. That's heavy. Just the guilt and the regret in that statement.
And the reviewer sees this as a broader commentary on the need for more understanding and care for children in society as a whole.
So it's not just about pointing fingers at individuals. It's about recognizing that we all have a role to play in supporting and protecting children.
That's right. It's a collective responsibility. And it makes you think, are we doing enough? Are we truly paying attention to the struggles that young people are facing?
That's a really powerful message. Now, you mentioned earlier that there's this one episode that really stands out, the one with the psychological confrontation.
Oh, yeah, the third episode. The reviewer calls it the most brilliant psychological confrontation. Like they were blown away by it.
Okay, so what makes this confrontation so brilliant?
Well, it all centers on the dialogue between Jamie, played by Owen Cooper, and the clinical psychologist, Bryony, played by Aaron Doherty. And the reviewer describes it as a total battle of wits.
So, high stakes, a lot of tension.
Definitely. And it starts off so innocently, with Bryony offering Jamie hot chocolate and sandwiches. Trying to create a relaxed, comfortable atmosphere.
So a very deliberate tactic to try and get him to open up.
Exactly. But beneath that surface, Bryony's carefully trying to unravel Jamie's true self, to figure out what's going on inside his head. And Jamie, he's not just passively answering questions, he's actively trying to deflect, to manipulate the situation.
So he's playing mind games with her.
In a way, yeah. The reviewer even uses the term PUA, which suggests that Jamie is deliberately trying to undermine Bryony's authority and control the conversation.
Wow, that's pretty disturbing, especially for a 13-year-old.
It is. And eventually, all that tension, all that psychological maneuvering leads to Jamie breaking down. And that's when you start to see the real damage, the impact of all those negative influences.
So what comes out? What does this breakdown reveal?
Well, the reviewer talks about how Jamie's breakdown exposes the deep-seated effects of what's often called toxic masculinity. Those harmful societal expectations about how men and boys are supposed to behave.
Yeah, the whole boys don't cry, be tough mentality.
Right. And it also reveals his very twisted views on women. So for you as a listener, this is where the series really connects the dots. It shows how these broader societal problems can directly contribute to an individual's psychology and actions.
Yeah, it's like a domino effect. And how does the psychologist Bryony react to all of this?
Well, according to the review, she manages to stay professional throughout the whole ordeal. And ultimately, she gets the answers she was looking for.
So she achieves her goal, but at what cost? I mean, this kid is clearly deeply troubled.
Yeah, it's definitely not a clear-cut victory. And then, to make things even creepier, Jamie begs for Bryony's approval as she's ending the session.
He begs for her approval. What do you mean?
He literally says, "You should like me, right?" And the reviewer points out how disturbing and manipulative that is, especially coming from someone who's committed such a horrible act.
Oh, wow, that's chilling. Like, he needs her validation even after everything he's done.
Exactly. And the reviewer draws a parallel between Jamie's behavior and the tactics often used by domestic abusers. That need for control, that manipulation.
So, this scene is about way more than just this one kid. It's a commentary on a much larger societal issue.
Absolutely. And it makes you think about how early these patterns of behavior can start.
Right, and how crucial it is to intervene and address them before they escalate.
Definitely. Now, all of this leads the reviewer to pose another thought-provoking question. Can schools provide good education?
Can schools provide good education? So we're going beyond just this one crime now. We're talking about the entire education system.
Exactly. The series uses this extreme case, this horrific crime, to raise questions about the role of education in society. Is traditional schooling enough? Are we truly preparing young people for the complexities of the modern world?
And are we teaching them the critical thinking skills they need to navigate the internet and all the potentially harmful content they might encounter?
Absolutely. And the reviewer really stresses the importance of recommending adolescence to parents specifically.
So it's not just entertainment, it's almost like a wake-up call for parents.
In a way, yeah. It's a reminder that even if your child seems good and well-behaved, there might be hidden struggles, unseen influences that you're not aware of.
Yeah, you can't just assume everything is okay. You have to be actively involved, pay attention, have those tough conversations.
And the reviewer cautions against those easy dismissals, those thoughts like, oh, that wouldn't happen to my kid, or a 12-year-old couldn't possibly be capable of that.
Yeah, those kinds of assumptions can be dangerous. You can't just ignore the potential risks.
And it's not about living in fear, but about being informed and aware, about recognizing the signs and being prepared to support your child if they're struggling.
So ultimately, what's the takeaway message here? What does the reviewer want us to walk away with?
I think it's about the power of empathy and understanding. They really emphasize the importance of choosing care and companionship over judgment.
So meeting people where they are, trying to understand their perspective rather than just condemning them.
Exactly. And that applies to both parents and children. We need to create a more supportive and understanding environment for everyone.
Yeah, that's a beautiful sentiment. So to wrap up our deep dive into this adolescence review, it sounds like we're dealing with a really heavy-hitting, thought-provoking piece of work.
Oh, absolutely. It's way more than just a typical crime series. It delves into these incredibly complex issues like family dynamics, bullying, the dark side of the internet, toxic masculinity, and it does so in a way that's both compelling and deeply unsettling.
Yeah, and that psychological confrontation in the third episode sounds like it's really something else, just the sheer intensity of it.
Yeah, no kidding. The reviewer is adamant that this is God-tier drama. They believe it's incredibly relevant for a wide audience, forcing us to confront uncomfortable truths about our society and the challenges facing young people today.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? What are some of those subtle pressures and messages that we might be missing in our own lives or the lives of those around us?
That's the question, isn't it? And how can we do better? How can we create a world where young people feel seen, heard, and supported?
Food for thought, for sure. And that's what makes this kind of deep dive so valuable, right? It pushes us to think critically and to challenge our own assumptions.
Exactly. It's about broadening our perspectives and engaging in those difficult conversations. And hopefully that leads to positive change.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So, to all our listeners out there, if you're looking for something that will stay with you long after the credits roll, something that will make you think, and maybe even spark some important conversations, Adolescence might be worth checking out.
And remember, let's approach these complex issues with empathy and understanding. Let's listen to each other and work together to create a better world for everyone.
Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Until next time.
See you next time.